Hello there guys, it's me Unstable Voltage and welcome to a brand new series for you. I am starting a playthrough of Age of Wonders 3. So if you haven't heard of it, it is a 4X game from Triumph Studios. It's actually based more on sort of magic than sort of real life history. So those of you who are used to my Civilization 5 series may notice a little bit of a difference here. I'll probably make a lot of comparisons to Civ 5 because let's be honest, it's very difficult for me to do a series on a 4X game without doing so. And also a lot of people have familiarity with the Civilization franchise. So we're going to do a random map. There is a campaign. There's actually 2 campaigns in Age of Wonders 3, but if this is a game that you're interested in, like most 4X games, I think a lot of the replayability comes from the random maps. And if any of you do play it, or are playing it, or decide to play it in the future, and you want to go through the campaigns, I'd prefer not to spoil the storylines for you, because the storyline is actually quite good. So we're going to do a random map. So we can choose a number of players we have, up to a maximum of 8. We're just going to go for 4, because I don't really know how long this is going to take. Now, we have a number of options that we can choose. Obviously, we've got our difficulty, Squire, Knight, Lord, King, up to Emperor. I'm going to do it on the second difficulty, which is Knight, because so far I haven't actually completed a random map yet. I've started a few. I've been playing with a few other people, as well as a couple on my own, but I haven't completed one. Map size goes anywhere from small, medium, up to extra large, which extra large maps can take a very long time to complete. And I can believe that, because even the medium map is quite big. We can choose the map type. We can have land, we can have continents, we can have islands, or we can have just something that's just completely random. I like the land because more places to build is very nice. And we have got the game mode essentially. So normal, you start with a city and an army. With battle, you actually start with a very, very powerful army. And with empire building, you basically just start with a settler. Adventure, there's lots of armies. There's just different ways to play the game, basically. Now, all of the victory types within Age of Wonders 3 are very much combat-based. It's literally wipe out the opposition. Now, I know I said that this was something that I didn't like in Warlock, which is a fair point, but Warlock doesn't have great combat. That's the problem. Warlock is based on the Civilization 5 combat, and while Civilization 5 is an absolutely brilliant game, the combat is probably the weakest part. But at least Civilization 5 gives you other victory types. Age of Wonders 3 is pretty much combat focused, but the combat is the best part of the game, and it really makes up for it. We can also go onto this advanced button here. It allows us to make some other changes, including the game flow. So we can literally customize the amount of every different thing on the map: roaming units, treasures, cities, dwellings, resource structures. We can even go into geography and tweak these sliders to have different types of biomes, how much water we have, how many mountains. I'm going to leave everything on sort of standard for now. You also have the option to play underground. There's actually 2 levels to the map. There's a surface and there's an underground, with various passages that move up and down between them. In the interest of speed and for this game, we're just going to play on the surface. I'll probably do another game at some point where I will have an underground, but for this one we're just going to literally use the surface. So we are going to have 4 players. 1 is me, the other 3 are AI. Allied victory is going to be allowed, but we're not going to start allied with somebody. And turns, classic turns is very much like Civilization 5, where one player takes a turn, then the next player takes a turn, then the next player takes a turn. Simultaneous turns, everyone takes their turn at the same time, which is a little bit interesting. We've got an advanced rules buttons here for starting resources and how many heroes you can have. The default is 5. I will explain more about that as we go on. So we're going to hit launch, and we get to choose a hero. Now, there's a big list of heroes that we can choose from down here on the left-hand side. And we can also customize our own, which is what we are going to do. I've already got one in there from a game I've been playing. I've got myself in there as a High Elf Sorcerer. I do like the elves, actually. They are one of my favourite races in the game. So we're going to hit with Customize New. Now, what you actually have in this game is there are, I think, 6 races. You've got High Elves, Humans and Orcs, Goblins, Dwarfs, and the Draconians. And then, as well as the 6 races, you also have 6 different classes. You have the Dreadnought, the Rogue, the Sorcerer, the Theocrat, the Warlord, and the Archdruid. Now, the race of your hero, or the race of your leader, very much changes what your starting units are, basically. So, if I was to start as a High Elf, I would start with Elven units and an Elven city. But you can get units from other races by capturing their cities. One of the things that really changes the flow of the game, though, is the actual class that you're playing. Dreadnoughts are very much focused on siege and machines. Rogues are very good at poisoning and infiltration and sort of backstabby type maneuvers. Sorcerers, as you would expect, are very good with magic, fireballs and summoning creatures and that kind of thing. Theocrats are pretty much a sort of paladin priest type mix, so very good at healing and smiting, that kind of thing. Warlord is very melee combat focused, very good at dealing huge amounts of damage, buffing units, getting enemy units to attack themselves and stuff like that. Archdruid has a lot of nature affinity, good at heals, good at elemental spells and abilities like that. I've played a lot as a sorcerer. I've also played a fair bit as a rogue. I think I'd like to have a go at a different class that I haven't played before. I'm thinking actually, I have played a little bit of Archdruid, but I think we might go Archdruid and see what we get. As for the race, I am quite partial to the elves. The goblins just look hilarious. The elves are one of my favourite races in the game. I think we will go for the elves, actually. And again, you've got the option to choose between male and female characters. It doesn't make any difference at all to abilities. You also pick 3 different specializations. Now, a lot of these specializations, so it's defaulted me here to air, water, and creation, which means I'll start with a water spell, I'll start with an air spell, and I'll start with some sort of healing, creation-y type spell as well, which is quite random what you get in the game. Some of these abilities are aligned to good or aligned to evil. So if I use a lot of destruction, it would sort of make me move to an evil alignment. So there is an alignment system in this game where you can be good or evil. I'm going to make a few changes here. I think I'm definitely going to go for the fire, because it's nice to have the fireball. I'm going to go for the Adept of Air, and I think we will go for Creation Adept. I usually play good. There is a couple here like Master of Air and Master of Fire. You can only pick Mastery if you've already picked the standard one. So for example, if we've picked Fire, we can pick Master of Fire, which would give us even more fire spells. But we're just going to go with Fire, Air and Creation, and that'll do for me. And then we have customization. We can actually customize what our character looks like. You can choose the skin texture, skin color, skin decoration, which is basically just like these sort of facial patterns. I don't really like having all these scars and things on. Choose the hairstyle. Can't really rotate the model, which is like a weird thing. You'd expect that is something that you could do, but it won't let you. You can have a bold elf. That's just really weird. Eyebrows you can change. So just like there's not a huge deal of customization. Most of these things literally only have a couple of options that you can choose, but some have more than others. So you can choose the hair color. All the usual. No facial hair, of course. This is a female character. Choose the eyes. Some of them look quite evil, actually. And accessories, which is basically just things like crowns and eye patches and earrings, halos, and all sorts of other weird things. Little sort of bandit mask there, which my other character has. Eye patch. Earrings and all sorts. We can go for the earrings. Why not? And we can choose the background scene. Doesn't make any difference. It's just nice for aesthetics. We can choose what our sort of pose is. I think we want something that's a little less... that's quite a good one. And we can choose the clothes. So your clothes are very much based on your starting class. The clothes never change. It's just literally what you look like. I like the cloak, actually. I think we're going to go for the cloak. We can choose what colours we're going to play as. Let's go for something that isn't quite so so dark. That's quite nice, actually. No, I'm not going to go for the red and the grey. Let's go for something a little bit different. Actually, yeah, let's go for a green and find a nice sort of contrasting colour that works well with it. There we go. So the green and the red. That works quite well. We could choose our symbol, which is literally just how we appear on the map. That looks like a talon, so that'd be very, very good for us. And it gives us a name, but we can put our own name in. We can choose what our portrait is going to look like in the game. And that's pretty much everything done. So let's just hit done and go in. And hopefully I will be able to explain the game to you. So I'm not as experienced with this as I am with a lot of other games, but I will certainly do my best. So here we go with Odrun Stablis, and let us start. So first things that I'm going to do is click on this little button down here next to the minimap and have a look and see what starting spells I have. So I've started with a couple of level 3, a couple of tier 3 spells, as you can tell by these little circles with the number in. So I've got Domain of the Sun. Now, these spells here are global spells. So any spells you see that have like this sort of star-shaped pattern or sun-shaped pattern around the outside of them are global spells, which means that you can cast them on the strategic map. So I've got Domain of the Sun, which targets a friendly city, and it makes that city like tropical and volcanic terrain, which basically means I can build a city in volcanic and tropical terrain and make it so that people aren't too unhappy about it. I can also summon Hellhounds, which is a magical unit that can bolster my armies. I will have also started with a combat spell or two. So any spells with these sort of pointy stars around them are combat spells, which you use in the tactical battles. So we've got the Seeker enchantment, which targets a friendly unit's physical ranged abilities and ignore obstacles and line of sight penalties, which is actually brilliant because one thing I love about the elves is the longbows. The archers are absolutely brilliant, and this basically means that if I target them with this spell, they won't suffer line of sight or range penalties, which is brilliant. And we have Hornet Swarm, which unleashes a swarm of giant hornets on enemy troops, dealing 20 blight damage to target enemy unit. The effect jumps a maximum of 4 times to other units, 3 or less hexes away from the previous target, and obviously machine and undead units are immune. So there's various different types of damage that you have that's all elemental. You've got things like fire and frost and blight, and different units have different resistances and weaknesses to various different things. So if, for example, I click on this army here, and you can see we have a unicorn rider. If I click on the unicorn, we can see that the unicorns have a blight weakness by 20%. So the unicorns take an extra 20% damage from blight attacks. Now, your resistances and your elemental damage that you can do is very much dependent on the race that you're playing. So, the blight weakness is a drawback of playing as the elves. If you're playing as somebody such as the goblins are very, very resistant to blight and do a lot of blight damage. If you're playing as the dwarves, they're very resistant to frost. The draconians are very resistant to fire. So there are some differences depending on who you're playing. So very quick look at the interface down here at the bottom. This is our alignment, currently neutral. It'll turn black if we go evil. It'll turn to a bright yellow sun if we go completely good. Obviously that's our coat of arms. This is our empire happiness, our morale, which is currently content. It's set to 0. Current research, and then just like you have on Civilization 5 over here, you've got all the pop-ups. So protect your leader and throne city. So even though we have armies, we also have our leader just here. Now, first thing you're going to notice is I've just selected this hex, and there's actually 6 units selected. This is our army. And the way this works is you can have 6 units in a stack, and they can all move around together on one hex. And you can have a leader leading that army. Now, what I'm going to do is I don't have any cavalry in this unit at all. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to take this archer and just select him there with this little button at the bottom. I'm going to move him out of the stack. So now this stack only has 5 units in, as you can tell by the number here on the banner. I'm then going to take this unicorn and move that in, and now the stack has a unicorn in there as well. So I've got a little bit of charge in there. So we need to protect our leader. Now, if your leader dies, the leader does respawn at the throne city, which is here, because this is our first city. Be careful, though, because if you have lost your throne city to the enemy, and then your leader dies, you can't respawn, that's it, game over. So you've got to protect the leader and the throne city, and we need to defeat all the rival empires. So along the top bar here, let's just get rid of those. Along the top bar here, you can see this is how much gold we have and our income per turn. Obviously, units and buildings have an upkeep. This is our mana. So this is what we use for casting spells, and this is the global pool. This is our research per turn, which we use to unlock new technologies. And these are our casting points. Casting points limit the number of spells, or which spells you can cast on any given turn. So we've got a few things around the map here. So you can see this is the domain. These borders are the domain for my city. And anything within the domain generates whatever that particular building generates. So if we look over here, you can see we have an air node, and it says it's explored, which means we get whatever it's generating, and it's generating 15 mana per turn. And then if you have a look over here at the back, you can see we have a gold mine that is explored, and that's giving us 10 gold per turn. And as the city grows, the borders will expand as well. So, a few things we've got to do. Select a skill to research. If we do that, we are given a list of options. You can see they all tell us how much research they need to pop. We're only getting 23 per turn, so of course something that needs 60 is going to take 3 turns. The first thing I usually like to go for is this one here. It does change based on your class. So of course we're playing a druid, so we get druidry. If we were playing a sorcerer, we'd have sorcery, and so on and so forth. These upgrades that have got this little sort of temple sign behind them, they are empire upgrades, and then of course we've got global spells and we've got combat spells here. But the druid we want allows us to increase the spell casting points, allowing us to cast more spells per turn. So it's a very, very useful thing to have. We've also got a hero offer to join. Now you always start the game with one of these. We have Slurter the Unholy, a level 1 rogue, wants to join forces for 100 gold. Sure, why not? We're going to click accept. Now we have another hero. We're going to put that hero over here on top of that archer that we split from the main pack. And now we have a second army who is going to just sit in the city and save it. We're going to move the unit out. And this unit is going to move into the city. Now, it doesn't actually have to be in the city, because any friendly unit that is in an adjacent hex counts as being in the city, so we are good. Now, one thing you are going to notice with the army is that they do actually have a lot more movement than in a game like Civilization. It's not just a case of moving 1 or 2 hexes. Obviously, the army's movement speed is limited by its slowest units. But we're going to move on to this cartographer's tent, and that will reveal a portion of the map. Now that, I believe, is actually a dragon's lair. It'd be quite difficult to take, but if we could take it, we'd be able to get ourselves some dragons. We're going to move out of these marshes and get onto the roads. Obviously, roads give you better movement, and things like marshes and forests and mountains really reduce your movement. Can't move any further with this unit because the footmen are out of moves. I could split off my hero, for example, and move another couple of hexes, but there's no point. We need to select a production for Feliwil, which is our main city. So we're going to select production. Now the production queue is 5, so you can queue up to 5 things, and we can build at the moment longbows, swordsman's, initiates, which are quite a very, very basic unit that can get upgraded, and a basic siege unit in the form of a battering ram. We can also see our building up available buildings. We can see the options for the city, because you can raise and plunder cities and convert them. And also any existing sort of things that are going on. So we start with wooden walls, we start with a barracks. So we've got some nice things there. And the Archdruid's dolmen, which allows us to purchase the class-specific units at this city. First thing we're going to do, though, is build a shrine, because it'll let the city generate an extra 10 mana per turn. It'll also allow us to build High Elf Storm Sisters, which are one of my favourite units. So we're going to build the shrine. We're also going to get shooting grounds for better archers, war hall for better infantry. And they will probably go for a storehouse, which will let the city grow better because there is more food. Hopefully we won't run out of money. Army requires orders. I'm just going to get these guys to camp in the city. I don't need them to go anywhere, so I'm going to hit this little camp button here. They'll literally stay there until I give them an order. Now you can see we've got a unit over here with a grey banner. These are independent, so they're very much like the barbarians in Civilization. There's an army of 4. If I clear them out, because they are on top of a farm, If I cleared them out and took that farm, I'd get an extra 100 population for the city. These guys may be a little difficult for me to take at the moment. There's a couple of kobolds and a warg, which are fine because they're only rank 1. They're quite weedy. But there is a level 3 cockatrice here, which has a lot of health and has got quite a lot of resistance. So I don't think that I'm in a really good position to attempt to take that out right now. They shouldn't come and attack me. These independents usually just sit and guard the buildings that they're on. But we will certainly go and deal with them as soon as we're able. So everyone else has had their turn while I've had mine, so I'm going to click next turn, and instantly we are on the next turn because everybody else has already moved, or may still be moving. And of course, an army requires orders. Now, the first thing I've seen down here is we've got this little treasure chest. If I go and jump on that, we instantly get ourselves 228 gold and an amount of mana, which I didn't quite read properly. So, what have we got down here? We have ourselves a gold mine. Now, it's unexplored. It would give us 10 gold per turn, but not at the moment because it's not inside our domain. It has hunter baby spiders, which are both tier 1, and a tier 1 boar. We can click on them to find out about them. We can see how much movement they've got. We can see how much health they have. This is their defense or their melee resistance. This is their magical resistance. So they have a melee strike, which allows them to do up to 8 damage. They can charge. They're animals. They've got forestry, which means that they get reduced movement penalty when walking through forests. And we've got these spiders as well. Now, spiders do slightly less melee damage, but they also do 4 blight damage. Now, remember, we have a weakness to blight damage, which means it'll do a little bit extra. They have phase, which allows them to teleport, but it can only be used once in battle. They have a web, which allows them to incapacitate a unit for 2 turns. Cave crawling doesn't really apply because we're not underground. They can climb over walls. They can evolve into different types of spiders. They can see in the dark, and they've got blight protection. So they are actually quite nasty little units. But we're going to move our army in, and we're going to show you how the fighting works. Now, if I click on the unit there, what you can see is it's showing me my units and their units. I've got the option to run away. We could go into auto combat and have the AI automatically resolve the outcome, but I don't like doing that because the combat is half the fun. Or we can go into manual combat. Now, there's only the 2 units involved here, or the 2 armies, but if I had another army stood next to the spiders within one of the surrounding hexes, they would be involved as well. And even if the independents had another army, they'd be involved. So you can have the defending hex, and then all of the surrounding 6 hexes can be involved in the battle. So you can have 7 armies with 6 units involved in the battle. So let's go into manual combat, and we'll end this video by showing you what Age of Wonders is all about. So here we are, we're now in the tactical combat screen. There are my units. They've automatically started on guard because the defenders always get to move first. So they're all going to move forwards. They shouldn't be able to get close enough to me to do anything significant. Obviously the boars have a little bit of better movement. So here we go. These are our units. Now, if I select a unit, you will see a hex grid appear on the ground in different colours. And if you look at the top here on the interface, you can see I have these action points. Now, moving into a green hex doesn't actually cost me an action point, so I can do that quite safely. Moving into the yellow hex will cost me 1 action point. Moving into an orange hex will cost me 2 action points. And even once you've used those 2 action points, you can still either guard or you can attack. Now, you can flank units if you can get up behind them. If you get up behind a unit and flank it, you can actually hit it without it being able to retaliate, which is a really good thing. Because normally, if you attack a unit and you don't kill it, if the unit has any turns or any action points, it will attack back, it'll retaliate. If you can attack it from behind, it won't retaliate. However, these units are guarded, which means that they can't actually currently be flanked, which is a little bit of a problem. Also, units take opportunistic strikes. So as you can see, there's that little red arrow that is pointing in this hex here. Only appears if I try and move past it, because every unit is actually guarding the 3 hexes that are in front of it. And if you try and move out of one of those hexes, they will attack you. So we do have to be very, very careful. So let's start doing some stuff. I'm going to take my archers because I do love the longbows here. So as you can see, I've got 3 action points. I'm going to move forwards on to this hex here. Still have 3 action points. Now, I can't move another 1 hex because that will put me into the yellow hex and that would use an action point. I'm now close enough to hit these guys. I don't get a ranged penalty for either of them. Now, if you actually look at my ranged ability, it does 9 damage, range medium, can trigger up to 3 times. And it is an arcing shot. Now, arcing shots are generally better because they go over low obstacles. It can't be used while the target is engaged, which I'm not because I don't have anything attacking me in melee, but it can trigger up to 3 times. Now, the way that's going to work is because I actually have 3 action points remaining, it'll fire 3 times. And it also says I have a +1 ranged strength. Not too sure where that is coming from. It could be a perk from my leader, actually. Let's just have a look. Because we do these are all of the abilities that our leader has. And our leader has an inventory as well and can be upgraded through the battle. That's something I'll show you on another video because it does take quite a while to get to that sort of point. We've got a vision upgrade. So, yeah, a lot of nice stuff. Fast healing, mounted cavalry. So there we go. Let's pick our archers, and we are going to fire 3 shots at these baby spiders. And we actually managed to wipe the unit out, which was very nice. Also very good for us because it means that we don't take any damage. Let's see if we can do the same thing with these guys over here. Do we have a clear shot? Yes, we do. That rock isn't in the way, so we are going to take our 3 shots. Now, we didn't quite manage to kill them on that particular turn, which is a bit of a shame. We do have our unicorns here. Now, our unicorns can charge this spider, or I could actually teleport, and I could teleport behind them because it's one of the abilities that the unicorns have. Now, what I'm going to do, actually, is I'm going to charge the spider. Now, my charge will do 14 to 20 damage, and the spider only has 7 health remaining, so it shouldn't be able to counterattack me, because it should die. I always get to go first. There's my attack, and the spider died. Some units do have first strike. They're the ones you've got to watch out for. So let's have a look at my combat abilities. What I can do, because my leader's here, my leader can move. My leader can also shoot her longbow, which again can fire up to 3 times. But I do have the ability to cast a spell in combat. I'm limited by the amount of casting points I've got. So for example, I can't even cast Hornet Swarm. I can't cast Hornet Swarm because it requires 25 casting points and I only have 20. I could cast my Seeker enchantment, but I don't really need to because my ranged units have already fired. So there's very, very little point in me actually using a spell. So I'm going to fire with my bow, which is one of the items that I have. And you can get upgrades for these. So I've done a lot of damage to those boars. Now what I'm going to do now is go up behind these guys with my Union Guard, or my swordsman. Now, as I said, the target can retaliate because it is guarding, which means I can't flank it. And with the mouse over, you can see that I will do 7 to 11 damage to the boar. And the boar has 12 health, which means the boar is most likely going to survive. So the boar will retaliate and do 5 to 7 damage to my swordsman. So if I hit the boar, I do 8 damage. It retaliates. Now the boar has 4 health left. What else do we have? We have our Union Guard. They can get to them. Now, whenever you end a turn, all of your units get all of their action points back. So that boar would have had 3 action points when it ended its turn. Now that it has retaliated once, it only has 2 action points left. If I was to get it to retaliate again, it would only have 1 action point left. And if I was to get it to retaliate a 3rd time, it would use all its action points. Then when the turn switched over to the AI, this unit wouldn't be able to move because it's already used all of its action points for this turn. But as it stands, I'm going to be able to kill it outright because it can't actually do anything. I've killed it off. I've taken a little bit of damage to 1 unit. That was a very, very basic example of a fight. Certainly not the most difficult fight that we're going to come across, but it does show you quite well how it works. And we are going to close that. We get 41 gold for clearing the mine. The mine is explored. When our borders get large enough to encompass that mine, we will get extra gold per turn from it. So there you go. That's some of the basics of the way that Age of Wonders works and the way that the combat works. And I'll see you on the next video. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. And until next time, goodbye for now.